Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Spiritual Discoveries with Angie and Friends. My name is Angie Abt. I'm a registered Lilydale medium, and I'm really looking forward to talking to my friends, Mark and Elaine Thomas. Hi, Mark and Elaine.
Hi, Angie.
Hi.
Hi, I'm excited to have you here. And you know, everybody, Elaine is also a registered Lilydale medium. And I want to talk about Lilydale just for a couple minutes before we get started with this awesome interview with Mark and Elaine. So, Elaine, you've been registered, like you're the longest registered medium in Lilydale, right?
Yeah, I'm the longest continuous registered, not the oldest.
I know. Yeah.
I got registered in 1976.
Yeah. And you were young. You were very young, too.
I was about 23, 24 when I got registered. And I was probably one of maybe 2 or 3 people under 70 at that time. So we were the kids.
The kids.
I said to a friend recently, how did we end up not getting to be the kids anymore?
I know. I feel like that too, all the way around in my life, right? That happens.
Right.
So what would you say? So has Lilydale changed a lot, like through the years?
I think the place, the essence of the place, still has that beautiful spirituality, the earth energy. And I think it's always been a place where people have come to seek solace, having lost family or friend members, and also for inspiration about, healing things in their personal lives. So I see that is still continuing.
Yeah, I agree. And Mark, you too. You know, you've been part of Lilydale. You both had lived in Lilydale for a lot of years.
Well, yeah, back in the 80s we did. When we first came to Chautauqua County, we bought our home in Lilydale in 1983, really full-time residents from 85 till about 95. So about 10 years we lived on the ground.
Yeah, I remember.
It's a place of there's a spiritual presence. There's a quietness to the grounds, even with it when in the busyness of the summer, you still feel that quietness, and it's a great place for people to go on retreat. It's a great place for people that are seeking spiritual direction, and it's been that way for well over 100 years, 100 and almost 100 and a half now, right? And so it's gone through a lot of transitions over time. It always does, and it always will. That's life, and we're in a society that's changing dramatically as well. So, in a world that's changing dramatically, and Lilydale's no different in that regard. But the spirituality, the quietness of the place, the feeling you get when you go on the grounds itself, that remains. It remains a constant.
Yeah, it sure does. I'll never forget the first time pulling through the gates and how I felt, and you just sort of start walking around and you're near the water and just the whole essence, you feel that peace.
It's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everybody, if you're just tuning in, we hope we've given you time to come on. You don't want to miss this interview. But I'm Angie Abt, and this is Mark and Elaine Thomas. And Mark and Elaine are co-founders of Fellowships of the Spirit, School of Healing and Prophecy. And you hear me probably talk about it all the time because I'm a graduate of the school. And I'm excited to get to talk to Mark and Elaine about the school that I went to. So, I want to welcome you guys again, and thank you for coming on. So talk to everybody about Fellowships of the Spirit. Like, what is it? How did you start it? All that.
Well, it started back before we actually started Fellowships. We were on a quest to accelerate unfolding people's healing and intuitive gifts, as well as teaching them how to go into meditation. And so we were searching for a more streamlined way of doing it. The way I was trained with a fabulous teacher, but they didn't know that there was a technical component. And so we were looking for ways to do this and developed first the spiritual insight trainings, and then we were accomplishing for the students in one weekend what could take 1 to 5 years in a traditional circle, spiritualist home circle. And it was very exciting, and people kept saying, well, where's part 3 to continue? And at first we were saying, oh, part 3 is life. And then we thought, what would it be like if we brought in other instructors who were very adept in their field of spirituality or spiritual knowledge? And what if they used the same model that we did? And so that was the beginning of the school in '88. The first spiritual insight training we did was in '87 in our living room in Lilydale.
In your living room. Wow. And it sure has changed, because now you have the school right outside the gates of Lilydale.
That's right. Yeah.
So I didn't know that story. So it started out to be that it was going to be spiritual insight training 1, and that was it.
Mhm.
Yeah, there was no 1 after it. It was just 1, spiritual insight training. And then
Right.
people wanted more, so we took it to the next level. And then people wanted more in-depth training. And there's so much talent out there of teachers that we gathered a faculty who understood some of the accelerated learning technologies that we were using, along with the ancient ways of teaching to speed things up.
Yeah.
And it's also our belief that an experience that we're all born with these gifts. It's just that some of us pay more attention to them. Some of them have it closer to the service spontaneously. And so this has accelerated for thousands of people, and we've refined and refined. We're going to be starting our 34th school class.
That's awesome.
This year. And of course, doing the spiritual insight trainings to train people in the accelerated learning model.
Yeah. And it's nice too, because finally, like after this last couple years, we haven't been able to be in person, and you're doing those in person, right?
Yes, totally.
Yeah. So everybody, I just want to say this. I got to get my sheet, but so you're running spiritual insight training 3 times, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So everybody, I'm going to post this stuff, so you're going to have it in the comments and information to sign up, and definitely take a look at this, because if you really want to learn a lot in a weekend, and you want to develop your intuition, learn how to meditate, talk about spiritual healing, and learn about yourself, which I'm going to talk to you about that in a second, Mark, because I think that's a big part of what Fellowships does that's different, is that you learn about yourself, right?
Truly, yeah.
Well, okay, so let me just give the dates, and I'm going to keep saying this throughout. But okay, so June 2nd through 4th, August 18th through 21st, or September 8th through 11th is Spiritual Insight Training Part 1 and 2 at Fellowships of the Spirit in person. And I know everybody's wanting in person, so that's awesome. So Mark, can you talk about because I know everybody always said it takes years and years to develop your intuition, right? And then you started NLP and the piece about learning about yourself and using this in your life. Can you talk about that?
Well, yeah, I think the most important thing about intuition is we all have it. The challenge is people don't know where the handles are, how to work with it. I turn it on and work with it consciously. So it's kind of like they call it street smarts, or they call it something else, or I just kind of knew, and in our culture, we live in a culture that puts intuitive down. The terms often used for intuitive things are pejorative. They're negative. They're critical of it. And people are taught to be afraid of it. Their children are taught to stop being that way, even though children come in with these capacities right at forefront, and yet so much about a lot of organized religion shuts a lot of that down. School systems focus on the other part of our cognitive learning capacities, our rational side is almost worshipped in our culture, if
Yeah.
not worshiped. And so this other part of us has to take a real back seat. And so it's there for all of us. The challenge is how do you bring it from the back seat to the front seat so it's a co-driver with the rational cognitive side of us. So it's not one or the other, it's a both and. You need both. And if you will, the intuition is kind of the navigator, if you will, if we're using a nautical or aeronautic kind of term. We need that a little more to the front seat versus the back seat. And that's what we do with spiritual insight training is help people bring this forward. And in order to do that, a lot of it is help people recover and rediscover, if you will, what it was there when they were a kid, and help bring that to the surface. And that can be a lot of fun. And we make the weekends a lot of fun too. The learning as fun, and that helps bring a sense of wonder. And that's the way we learned when we were children. We learned through wonder. We wondered about what the big people were doing, our siblings or our parents or other folks in our world. And then we modeled it. We did what they did.
Yeah.
And that's how we basically took the neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP you referenced, and take that modeling concept of how we learned when we were little and applying it to rediscovering how it is that we can work with our intuition on an everyday basis.
Yeah.
How do we make it just as important to us and on an equal footing with our rational side? And
Yeah.
I think one of the greatest things that we teach people is that. Now, you can apply that mediumistically, you can apply that in many, many other arenas, but having that internal knowingness come forward requires you also to get quiet enough to pay attention to it. And that's where the meditation comes in.
Yes, very much. Yeah, well, yeah, we have to talk about the meditation. You know what I remember too, like coming to spiritual insight training, and I had been kind of, connecting to my mediumship. I didn't know what it was. I was a little bit scared. And so I needed a framework for it. And I got that. But I kind of thought I was coming to spiritual insight training to learn how to do readings. And I came to the school, to be able to do readings. And I did learn that, but it's about so much more than that.
Yes, yeah, it truly is. Because readings are something you can learn how to do, and our school focuses on that as a means of further developing your intuitive, mediumistic, psychic, whatever capacities you want to call it. But for those of us that don't do readings, like me, and never had an interest in doing them, the bringing forth of that intuitive capacity, to me, it was crucial in my life, and it really helped round out a lot of things in my life. Yes.
Yeah, it changes your life because it's connecting you to that higher self or that higher power that we all have. We all have that connection. And Elaine, I love how this on your website you have, if you believe that communication with spirit is only available to a few exceptionally gifted and unusual people, please think again. Fellowships of the Spirit believes it is the birthright of every human being to experience this connection. And that's so true.
It really is. And in the 7 years that I worked as a reading specialist in the public school systems, I found out that from kindergarten through 4th grade, all kids have it. I used to do my own private survey of my students, all of them without exception over the years from kindergarten through 9th grade, either had precognitive dreams, they talked to angels, loved ones who had passed on came to them, they knew things ahead. And in 4th grade, the learning model in our public and private schools shifts away from a lot of the right brain creative play, music, art, and it tends to recede. We don't lose it. It's just somebody once said, the world we pay attention to is the world we perceive. And so, I watched that with a lot of younger people and even our own grandchildren. When they hit a certain age, their almost like grounded and fully engaged. And it's about teaching them to trust their feelings, not their emotions, but their feelings, their intuitive feelings, and then bringing that again to the present. And
Yes.
there's not, when I was brought up in this work, we were all told, oh, it takes 20 years to develop as a good healer or medium, and only a certain few were gifted. Well, that's not true. And we've shown that since 1987. And the youngest person in our spiritual insight training was 5 years old at the time. He came with his father. And the oldest has been like 93, but the 5-year-old, when it was time to give messages with his father there, he sat down with this woman and drew a house with asymmetrical pattern of the windows and doors in the front of it. And he said, this is what your house looked like. And it always looked like it wasn't laid out right. And he stick figure drawing, and then he drew a brown and white cow, and he said, and this woman was probably around 60 and he was 5. He said, and this is your pet cow, Bessie, and she just wants you to know that she's in God and that she's with you all the time and she still loves you.
Wow.
Out of the house of babes, you know.
She confirmed this, the house did have a weird look to it. So all of that was, the kid was spot on. Yeah.
That's amazing, isn't it? That's like that stuff that you're like, oh wow, this is something. I remember bringing my granddaughter Isabella to one of your classes, Elaine, and I think I was babysitting her, and I was going to help you. I had to bring her, and it got to the part about giving messages, and she'd been hearing me about this stuff forever and ever, but no training, and you needed an extra person, and you said, Angie, can you help with the messages? And my granddaughter said, Grandma, I want to do that, and she did. Do you remember?
Yeah, I do. She was, and it's a matter of trust. And the Bible says, assume the virtue if you have it not. And the modern way of saying it is fake it till you make it. And one of the things that I've found out over 50 years is I never know what spirit is going to give me or my own higher self is going to give me until I open my mouth. So if I show up and I'm fully present, spirit shows up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe it's teamwork between us and other dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're focusing on us or worried about whether it's going to be valid or can I do this, we're not focusing on God and we're not focusing on the information for the person in front of us. And so, it's something that we're all capable of, and it's a joy. One of my greatest joys in teaching is watching people's faces when all of a sudden they've got it.
Yeah.
And they understand how to do what they're doing, whether it be healing, meditation, or message work.
Yeah, that's true. I know what you mean. And it's watching their faces and the way that you feel too. That I remember when I started teaching, I'd be, this works, it really does. It's amazing. And I remember you saying that if we show up, spirit shows up. And when you start doing this, you're a little scared, like here I am, and I'm going to start saying something to this stranger. And I've always kept that quote of yours in my head because it's true. And if you get yourself and get the fear out of the way and get to trust, there isn't a time that spirit doesn't show up. Every time they do.
Exactly. And usually much more than we anticipated.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. Yeah, very much. So with spiritual insight training, and I want to talk about meditation because first of all, I hear so many people say that they think they can't meditate, or I got to tell you this, Mark, because I know Mark teaches meditation and we're going to talk about this in a second. But I had somebody come to talk to me not too long ago, and they said, I'm taking intuitive development classes, and I don't remember who they're taking them from, but they said, the teacher said, meditation isn't important. I don't meditate, and don't worry about meditating. For me, I almost fell off my chair because I know how important it is. And I'm going to let you talk about that, Mark.
Well, you can train people to be psychic without teaching them to meditate. So if that's what that person's after, that's fine. You can also dive into a shallow pool, right? And you could dive into a deep well. And the depth to which you can dive into the interior silence, the interior quiet that's within all of us. Again, it's one of those things that we lose track of as we get real busy in our very distracting outer world. The depth to which you're able to dive into that interior quiet and access that is the depth to which you can access that same depth in another person, your family members, people that are coming to you if you are a medium or do this kind of work like Elaine does, like you do, Angie, where and many, many others, where you're really connecting with this person. It's not just about giving them information. It's really trying to make that soul level connection to them. Then you've got to be able to get still inside. You got to be able to quiet the busyness of the outer brain and mental activity and busyness of the bodies and sit and be still and be at peace and at comfort in your own skin. And that is so difficult for people in the world today because they are just running hither, thither, and yon. And, with this whole COVID epidemic, people were kind of coming unglued because they didn't know how to be at peace with themselves because they were no longer able to run all over and distract themselves with outer things. So they either got themselves wrapped up in the internet and scared the heck out of themselves, or they got unhinged. A lot of folks just really, really unhinged. So we're seeing all kinds of behaviors playing out in our society today where people are not glued together terribly well because they have not found a way to get still inside, to be at peace and again, comfortable in their own skin. Meditation does that for you. It brings you home to yourself, the deeper levels of yourself, your soul level. So if you want to develop spiritually, then you really need to be able to get still. You got to hear that still small voice within. You got to be quiet. And the only way to get there is to get into a regular disciplined practice of meditation. So we, in our spiritual insight courses and our other courses, really in our school, we emphasize that that's job one. You've got to be able to get there inside yourself first. That's that deep well I just referenced. Once you can get to that quiet, then you can go from spiritual depths as you access spirit contact, as you work with your intuitive, you work with that God self, you work with that prophetic inspiration. All of that comes to people easily when they get quiet. And that's what meditation does. And it is something that's easy to learn. And you're right, Angie, I do teach it in addition to spiritual insight training. I teach another course called Be Still and Know, where I teach that just the general public, just meditation. But, the bottom line is we all need this, and our society desperately needs it today.
Yeah, I think so too. I remember coming to school and that was to fellowship school. And that was one of the requirements was to meditate. And I thought, I don't really know how to meditate. And I don't know if I have time to meditate. I'm busy in my life. Like, where am I going to fit that in? But then I wanted to commit to the program, so I thought I'm going to do it because I'm not going to come to this and do it halfway. So I did, and you instructed on it as well, which helped a lot, and it right in the SIT classes. But I felt like to this day, I meditate every single day because it changed my life.
It does that. It reshapes your life. It reorganizes it in very, very special ways.
Yeah, for sure. So everybody, I just put up Fellowships of the Spirits, fellowshipsspirit.org with 2 S's. We always say 2 S's. And if you go on Fellowship's website, and I'm also going to post in comments their Facebook page, and you can take a look at the spiritual insight training classes that are coming up and the other classes too. I mean, Fellowships has a full schedule this year, right? Which is very exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Good lineup of some on Zoom, some hybrid with live and on Zoom, and some just in person. And we've mixed it up because there are people who still aren't easily traveling yet, and people who are thirsting for being with other people and learning in the same room. So there's a real cross section for different people's needs and desires.
Yeah. And I think people are thirsting for meditation and for connecting to their spirituality. I'm hearing that more than I think I ever have. How about both of you?
Yeah, that's my experience right now. People, I mean, there's a lot of chaos in our world. Our world's going through tremendous transformations, and a lot of that is if you get anchored into it, can be frightening.
Yeah.
It can be disturbing. It can cause a lot of anger and frustration, and yet, there's a tremendous amount of beauty around us too. And people lose sight of that when they get wrapped up in all of the other stuff I just mentioned. So,
Yeah.
but the way you get to that is you separate from it, and then you can see the larger perspective. The
Yeah.
larger perspective is there's incredible beauty all around us, and there's also the other stuff that's going on that it's, as I mentioned. So, if you can't access that side that feels comforting, feels inspiring, all that kind of peacefulness that you would really like to have and on a daily basis, then meditation's a good thing for you if you want to get there. If you want to get
Sure
to that.
is. Yeah. Actually, I had Tom Kratzley was on last week, and we talked on the show, and we talked about that same thing, that because some of the things happening in the world are disturbing and are kind of scary. And he was saying you can't go to the same level as the ones we don't agree with. We have to go to a different level, which he talked about meditation as well. Yeah. So
Angie, one of the things that I just want to mention about spiritual insight training, the course is designed to resurface and enhance people's spiritual gifts, or gifts of the spirit, if you will. And not everybody wants to be a professional healer. Not everybody wants to be a professional medium. But to own consciously and have confidence in your own intuition and applying it in a practical way. I like to call it practical spirituality, where you're using it in your everyday life and paying attention to what your own higher self or angelic beings or loved ones are sharing with you. That's what's important.
Mhm.
And a great number of our students over the years, that's what they were looking for in terms of their personal inner peace and growth, and being able to trust what they receive and build up that baseline and that foundation. So using our intuition, and whether it be in sending prayers or in giving somebody an inspirational thought or whatever, and we can trust it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you learn how to trust it and trust those feelings that you have. And why not? I always think this, why not use that in your daily life? It's the best tool ever. People go and ask everybody else for opinions, what should I do? Or how should I make this decision, or what have you? And really you can go within and get those answers. That's the best answers.
And in spiritual insight training, we've had people who have never consciously, on purpose, done any of this ever before, all the way to people who've been doing this work professionally for 43 years. And in the beginning, the surprising thing for us was it was like this great one-room schoolhouse, and everybody would go to their next levels.
Mm-hmm.
And the contrast and the of the skill base, so to speak, in the class only enhanced what was going on. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you a real quick story. One time we had an 11-year-old boy with his parents at Spiritual Insight Training, and they introduced themselves the first night, and they said, "Our son brought us because he's been so intuitive and loves healing." So one of the exercises we did that particular weekend was, they were a very precocious class. And so along with giving messages to one another farther into the weekend, I said, for those of you who want to stretch, you can ask your partner if you have any questions. And you can also say, would you like to ask the question silently?
Mm.
And people were going, whoa, I don't know. And some people were going, oh, that'll be fun, because the people who had more experience. Well, at lunch break, this 11-year-old comes up to me and I told them no yes or no questions. So he comes up to me on break and he says to me, I have a silent question I want to ask you, Elaine. And I hadn't done silent questions in years. And there was just this one moment where I hesitated and I said, I don't want to let him down. And then my immediate thought was, it's not about me, it's about him and about spirit. And if I show up and I'm totally focused, the answer will be there. And it just flitted through my mind because I'm so used to thinking that way. And so after I centered myself, I closed my eyes and I saw one of those kids' 8 balls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I saw it turn over and it said no. And I opened my eyes and I said to him, I said, you weren't supposed to ask a yes or no question, and the answer is no. He laughed and he said, I wanted to see if I could trip you up or if you really knew how to do this stuff.
Funny.
It was great. It was a gift, out of the mouths of kids.
And so that's the kind of things that happen at Spiritual Insight Training. So why, I want to ask you both this: why should somebody take this course? I know it's about it. It's a course, but it's a retreat. You do feel like you went to a retreat for the weekend, and it's about meditation and healing and developing your intuition. So, yeah.
I think you just answered the why for them.
Yeah, I think I did too. Yeah.
That's what we do. It's all 3 you just mentioned. It's meditation, it's spiritual healing, and it's developing your intuitive capacities. All those things, 3 things all rolled in one retreat weekend. And you do it as a retreat because, quite frankly, it's not a knowledge course so much as it's a skills course. If you really want to get good at something that's a skill, you have to practice it, and you got to get feedback on it. That's why people in the building trades and so forth have apprenticeships. Why? Because you're with people who are masters at what they do, and they teach the new folks coming in, and they share their knowledge with them, and it comes along. Well, in a skill-based learning system like we have here, this is not just a spectator sport. You're coming in and doing this stuff all weekend long. Yeah. We have a very high staff ratio to student ratio so that you get in small groups and you get feedback immediately on what you're doing, how it's working, how it's not, how to make adjustments, how to get better at it real quickly. And all of that makes for a very quick adjustment in the imbalance between your rational cognitive side and your intuitive side, and it brings those into balance. Mm-hmm. And it makes it a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. And that's why being on a retreat, you get to interact both in class with each other, but also on the meals and the breaks. And you get this feedback, this high quality feedback that makes such a profound difference all the way through. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we do. And that's why we require it to be an in-person course versus an online course. Yeah. You give that quality of interaction and feedback that we give. And that's the difference in our trainings. And it's when COVID was raging, we had to shut the course down. We totally shut it down because we didn't want to run the risks. And we couldn't also, for a while, everything like that was totally shut down, but governmentally, but it's opened back up again. People can come in and develop these skill sets. And that is so important. It's not an information-based course. You come into a training with us, you're going to be doing things.
Yes.
And the doing things you're going to be doing is opening up to your own inner innate capacities.
Yeah.
And that's
because that's so much how you feel. I remember feeling like that when I took it too. You open up. And in each one of the things that you do, you open up and you realize I can do this. I remember, doing the message part of it, and everybody that was doing it was amazed. I can do this. I can get messages. They are accurate for myself and for the person sitting across from me. It's amazing. Yeah.
That's our difference. So I hope that answered your question, but you started by answering. I just finished it. So
I know. I tend to do that. I ask the question, then answer it. So it starts out. So spiritual insight training starts out. So again, there's 3 opportunities to take it. Okay. June 2nd through 4th, August 18th through 21st, and September 8th through 11th. And so that's a Friday night until a Sunday.
Thursday evening through Sunday.
That's right. I forgot. That's right. I'm thinking of the old way you used to do it. Yeah.
This is the combined. Well, it used to be part 1 was a full weekend, part 2 was a full weekend. People are coming to us now, more able to handle all of that learning in one package weekend. But we've got to start on Thursday evening to get the content in that we need to get. And this course, this series of courses, is a precursor. It's a prerequisite as well to people entering into our School of Spiritual Healing and Prophecy. And the next school of that starts in October? October this fall. So people that are interested in our school, or not, either way, you have to go through this program in order to come into our school. It's the learning model. It's just as important as what you learn.
Yeah, it sure is. So talk about the school a little bit. I know you did a little bit before, but I'm a graduate. I love the school. To me, if you want to learn mediumship from the best people, the best teachers, I don't want to say just mediumship, because it's not just about that. It's about healing. It's about healing yourself. I remember that was an important part of it, that you had to kind of heal yourself and know who you were, right? Elaine, that was a big part of it.
And the instructors that we bring in, whether it be under the category of spiritual studies, mediumship, healing, whatever their expertise is, they're looking at training the whole person, not just the phenomena to produce results. And there's we and the instructors all start from the premise that this is about healing. It's not about facts. If it's healing, whether it be hands-on, whether it be over distance prayer, whether it be message work, the facts aren't enough. It's heart-centered healing and mediumship and intuition development, so that when we open our mouths or we take action, it's making a difference in people's lives.
Huge.
And sometimes, that includes spirit communication, and sometimes not. One time, a number of years ago, a young man came to me for a reading, and he said, "Before you start, Elaine, I have a story to tell you." He said, "I'm 21 now, and I just graduated from college. And when I was 9, my parents took me to the stump and at Lilydale, and you talked to me about my friend and I who had been bullied, and how I hadn't forgiven him because he ran away from the bullies, and I got beat up." And he said, "You talked to me maybe 3 minutes, 5 minutes." And he said, "By the time you were done, I felt I could go back to school again and forgive my friend." And he said, "I turned to my parents and said, please write that lady's name down. When I'm old enough and I have my own money, I'm going to go to her for a reading. And he went on to say, and that piece of paper with your name and number on it have been in my sock drawer all these years. I was so touched. And he said, I didn't know any dead people. He said, and you didn't give me any. It's not the healing I needed.
Mm-hmm.
Receptive young man that he is. But what was interesting is I had no idea that his grandmother had been with him and his parents that day long ago in Lilydale. And when I read for him the day that I'm talking about, his grandmother came through from spirit and talked to him.
Wow.
So, it's about being aware enough and available enough to give the people what they need, not what we think we want to give them.
Oh, I love that. I'm getting chills when you say that. And everybody, what Elaine just said, that's why you want to go to Fellowships of the Spirit, because you're going to learn how to give messages that are healing. You're going to learn how to go to that deeper place. And I love how you say that. It's not just about facts. It's about healing. And what a difference you made in that young man's life, that he came back after all those years.
I was blown away. I just, I don't tear up often in my reading room, but I was so moved and so touched.
Yeah.
And, I felt like one of those old country doctors, intergenerational.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. I love that story. I've heard you tell that story before and I love it. And stories like that's why we learn. And that's why we do this work, and it's about, we all want to make a difference, and I think you take a spiritual insight training course and you connect to that higher self part of you, and you learn, what you can do to make a difference, whether it's readings or healings. We all want to heal and make things better. So yeah, I love that. So spiritual insight training. So we take that for the weekend. And I remember I took it, I think I took it more than once before I came to school. And then I came back and took it again, because I think even after school, I came back and mentored it, because you just keep on learning. It's really the best course. And I've studied with others and taken other courses too, but always I come back to Fellowships. It's the best. And it's the two of you. I have to say this too. When I took the SIT classes, I took them from both of you. And then for a while, you didn't do it, Mark. And now you're back to teaching the SIT courses again. How's that?
Well, it was timing. I retired from my day job.
Yeah.
And I had more time available. And also post-COVID, this era we are in right now, the need that people have for the things that we teach and that I specifically built into the program originally, it was time for me to come back in and teach some of that again, because I think the need out there is so great. So yes, it was just time, Angie. It's a different era of my life. It's also a different era we're living through.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're back. I'm glad you're back. Yeah. It's awesome to have the two of you teaching together again. And I wanted to talk too, quick, Mark, because you have Be Still and Know. You're teaching that again. That's a meditation course that you taught, I think, in January, right? It's 6 or 8 weeks.
Yeah, February through in March. Yeah, it's a 6-week program. It's going to run Tuesdays in June, and the first 2 Tuesdays in July. We're going to run it again. People can come to the center and take it. It's Tuesday evenings. The vast majority of people do that one online. It's more of a knowledge course, and it's also a group meditation that we do. Profound meditation. The meditations are so deep. We have people from all over the United States and Canada in the last round that we did, and you were part of that.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
It is stunning how deep the meditations are, how deep people can settle in the silence. It's as if we're in a group meditation all in the same room, but we're all over 2 countries, all over this huge continent, and it's just astounding, because it teaches us all a lesson about the power of meditation and prayer, and that it's not a local effect. You don't all have to be in the same room. And it's that we are having this incredible impact in our own lives. And therefore, our prayer life, if we really want to take a look at that, is just as powerful because it's the same kind of thing. So people, and then I teach also a lesson each week on based on the Beatitudes, looking at that in the ancient languages, and also as those Beatitude teachings parallel the teachings of the Tao Te Ching, the Vedas, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Buddhist teachings as well, because they're so deep that they're all really from the same core source. And weaving those all together in a way that I've studied over the years, it allows people to have bigger context for understanding our lives on an outer level, but also appreciating the power of and the depth that occurs when we get in meditation and we get past our outer distractions. So it's the name reflects what we do. We get be still and we learn to know. We know from an inside place. Tuesday morning, and it's an hour and a half. That's it. And people want to stay out, I keep the line open longer. People want to visit, but I keep it to that hour and a half segment so that people who are busy people can get on with other things they have to do.
Yeah, true. So everybody, again, I have posted www.fellowshipsspirit.org with 2 S's. Take a look. And also if you look in the comments, okay, I'm going to post links for spiritual insight training, 1 and 2 combined. Okay. The dates will be there for that. And also for Mark's Be Still and Know meditation course. And I think I was so happy that you were teaching that again, Mark, because people need meditation right now. And really they need spiritual insight training too, because that's going to also take them to that same place of connecting to their higher self, which is so important.
Yes. And the impact that we can make from that in the world.
Yeah. Yes. Because that's what we can do, right? Isn't that true that that's what we can do is connect to our higher selves, meditate, and we're going to help to shift the energy and help the world, right?
And so much of the outer world now is focused on information that's disempowering to people. Yeah. And that just creates fear, it creates anxiety, it creates anger, frustration. Yeah. And what we're teaching takes people the opposite direction. If you realize that the real power is within you and you can access that and live that out, you can be the agent of change instead of letting other folks be the agent of change in the world we're in.
Yeah.
And that's all up to us. We all get to make that set of choices where we want to put our attention, as Elaine said. What the world we perceive is the world we put our attention on, as Elaine said earlier. And so, bottom line is there's ways we can do that and enrich our lives, but not just about us, about the larger community, society, and world we live in.
Yeah. And again, everybody, these are the things you learn if you take courses at Fellowships of the Spirit. You really want to take a look at this course, and you take this course. we're gonna keep posting it. I can't recommend it enough. So anything else? I want to talk about church. You have your spiritual worship services back too, right?
Yes, we started them in April. We're starting up live and on Facebook Live as well. The first Sunday of every month at 6 o'clock and
p.m. on Sunday. Yeah.
6 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday, and people can come on and watch. We do cut the electronic portion off after the lecture because we feel that there's a certain need for privacy when messages are being given. We're not a carnival, we're a worship service.
Yeah.
And so sometimes things will be personal. So we felt that our board felt that being online with people's personal messages wasn't appropriate. But we had a fun time, and it's been great to actually get together in person again and have our fellowships hour after services as well. So yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's so nice to be back in person, isn't it? It's nice to see faces without masks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anything else that either one of you want to say about the spiritual insight training courses? And I'm going to post again. Everything's going to be posted in comments for everybody to have easy access.
We've covered that. So
Yeah. And, it's when I was growing up, I kept saying, how can the things I know before I knew any formal training, how can I use this to make a difference in people's lives and in my life? And that's the starting point, and that's the ending point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for people who are looking for common sense and grounded training and not fly by night training that's been time tested since 1987, we're here for you. And if you're interested and you want to join us, we'd love to have you. And without exception, by the end of the first, spiritual insight training, everyone's giving verifiable messages to one another. Sometimes they're a sentence or two, sometimes they're much longer. And we've had people who are absolute rookies at doing hands-on healing have the energy come through them to somebody to heal one of their needs during the class. So the kaleidoscope and people from all over the North America, and we've had people from Africa and Europe as well fly over for them. But if that's something where your interest lies, like Angie said, go to our website, read about it. We've got a couple more videos that talk about spiritual insight training on the website, and we'd love to see you there in June, August, or September.
Yes, absolutely. The dates will be posted in comments, everybody, too. So to close, I wanted to ask you both. I'm going to ask Elaine first. Your favorite quote, because both of you have the best quotes ever. If I put you on the spot.
No, I think one of the things comes from Chris Slagter, one of our original faculty members from Toronto, Canada. He would always say, link, don't think. And if we're linked, we're totally present and we're totally committed in any area of our life. And along with that, for me, is I'll always ask myself, am I willing to do whatever it takes within me to make that commitment to the divine and to service? And that's key for me.
Yeah. It's funny because I wrote down what my favorite thing that you say, and I wrote link, don't think too. So I love that one too. It makes
tuned in or something.
I guess so somehow. Yeah, but that's what I had. So how about you, Mark?
I think one of my favorites is kind of funny, but it's got humor to it, but it's also very serious. And that is, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And we all get to decide in life what our main thing is. For me, it's about service and being in service to each other, with and to each other, and being connected with the divine source for the guidance for that. And that's the main thing. My life has been dedicated to that on multiple levels. That can play out any way in your life you need it to. Everybody plays it out differently.
Yeah.
But staying aware of the connection, our connection to each other, and also on that deeper level, but appreciating the fact that the divine source for all of us, we're all one in that, and understanding that on a very experiential and profound level is what I think the main thing is, to keep the main thing.
Yeah.
It's all about.
Thing. Yes, I love that one. I love that one. I didn't have that one for you. You know what I had?
Yeah.
I had uncontainable love.
Okay, yeah, that's another one of my concepts, but that I teach. But yes,
Yeah.
That's also, it's a big part of what I do.
Yeah. And you know what? We need that in the world today. We need to open our hearts and love. And if we do that, if, uncontainable love, everybody in our lives, that's going to make a huge change, the energy, shift the energy, make a huge difference.
Truly.
Yeah. So thank you, Mark and Elaine. This was
Angie, it
awesome.
was fun. It was great.
Thanks so much, Angie. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. It was a
Yeah.
lot of fun.
Me too. Me too. And everybody, spiritual insight training, look in the comments. I'm going to have all the dates posted. Fellowshipspirit.org to find out more about fellowships. Mark's Be Still and Know course, Fellowship School. And there's so many awesome courses being offered through the summer at fellowships on Zoom, hybrid, and some in person too. So absolutely take a look. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you taking some time to spend with us.
Thanks so much.
Have a good day.